Hello, welcome to our webinar today. I'm so excited to be welcoming you on today's webinar. This is the last webinar in our Trauma-Informed Care for Asian and Pacific Islander Survivors series. Some of you may have been on our previous two webinars in this series, so great to see you all again. My name is Shirley. I am with the Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence. Go ahead and feel free to introduce or continue introducing yourself in the chat box so we can see where everybody is coming from. I want to apologize. Normally we are able to provide live captionings within Zoom for our webinars. However, this time we were not able to find a captioner in time at the agency that we normally use, and I haven't been able to find somebody else to replace them. So we will not be able to have live captioning during the webinar. What we can do is add captionings to the recording of the webinar, and I'll be sharing that with all of you soon after it's ready. So probably Monday or Tuesday next week, we'll have the recording up with captions inside. And I know that's not the same as being able to participate in the webinar with captions live. So we do apologize for that, and we're looking into backup agencies to make sure that we can get captions for our future webinars as well. So like I said, this webinar will be recorded and it will be available later to watch on our website along with the two other webinars in this series. Feel free to write any comments, reflections, questions, share resources, and chat in the chat box. Just be mindful that it is a public chat box, and so anybody who, anything that you put in the chat box will be visible to all the other participants. However, the chat box will not be showing in the recording of the webinar. One note about the chat box is I think it defaults to send your message to all panelists only. So make sure that if you have a general message to choose the little drop down option that allows you to send it to all panelists and attendees. I want to thank you again for being here today in the midst of kind of this terrifying world that we're living in. Us in California and a lot of our friends in California, Oregon, and Washington and even Vancouver, we heard, are dealing with the wildfire smokes, and hopefully, or luckily, that seems to be under control. And I also want to send good wishes to everybody in the areas affected by hurricanes. Laura and Sally, I think, is the recent one. Hope everybody is doing well. Just to quickly introduce me, I work at the Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence. API-GBV is a national resource center on gender violence affecting Asian and Pacific Islander survivors and communities. We work with all of those, anyone who is working to end violence in Asian and Pacific Islander communities. And we do that through developing resources, trainings, technical assistance, advocacy, research, policy advocacy, in order to support, you know, everybody, all of your work. So the intent of this webinar and this webinar series is to learn from community-based organizations, those who are working day-to-day with survivors, those with the lived experience, those who work in the communities, in recognition that they are the ones with the experience and the expertise to share. And it's one of the coolest parts of my job in particular in doing these webinars is being able to learn from you all in amazing agencies like the Domestic Violence Action Center. And I'm joined today by Ella and Christina from Domestic Violence Action Center, or DVAC. We've worked with DVAC several times over the last few years. They are an amazing group of women and advocates who've done some amazing healing work in their community in Honolulu. DVAC is the only standalone agency in the state of Hawaii that provides services only to survivors and their families. So domestic violence is really the core of their work. So I'm going to I'm going to be around. I'm going to be monitoring the chat box and making sure if anybody has technical issues, I will be there. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Ella from DVAC.
Thank you, Shirley. Aloha, everyone. My name is Ella Mojica, and I am with the Domestic Violence Action Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. First, we want to send a big mahalo or thank you to Shirley and the API-GBV for inviting us to share some information about the work that we do. For the last 8 years, or so, I have been working with many different people who have experienced very traumatic events in their lives, rape, domestic violence, and child abuse. And I've learned so many different frameworks, strategies, and approaches to working with people who have experienced trauma. But one of the most invaluable things that I learned, and I learned especially through working with the amazing people at DVAC, is the importance of building connection, building meaningful connection when we're trying to assist people who've experienced trauma. So today I'm hoping that to share with you some of the ways in which we try to help people heal through connection. So I am going to stop my video throughout for the presentation, just to kind of minimize any glitches. So but I'll be here and I'll turn it back on in the end. So, okay. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our agency. Oops. Uh-oh, hold on. Oh, Shirley, it looks like I'm unable to move my slides. Sorry, bear with us.
Can you try stopping the share and restarting it? See if that fixes it.
Okay, give me a second here. Let me see if, okay, can you guys see that? No?
Not yet.
Okay. One. Share. Technology, right?
Don't worry, we're all getting used to it. I'm way too familiar with Zoom than I ever wanted to be. And still not familiar enough.
Yeah, right. It's okay, hold on. Let me see if I'm able to do this now. There. Make sure my sound is on. Share. Alrighty.
We can see that.
Okay, I'm just trying to make it the slideshow, yeah? So, I think it's here.
It's the...
I have these tools in the way.
At the bottom right. To the left
One.
of the little Zoom. Yep.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's get started. I wanted to share a little bit of information about our agency, DVAC. As Shirley mentioned, we are a community-based, not-for-profit organization. It started back in 1990 with 2 attorneys who volunteered to answer calls and provide legal information on a hotline or a helpline. And what they soon realized was that the people calling in had more needs than just legal. I mean, their social needs were not being met. And so our expo or outreach and long-term advocacy programs were introduced. And then later, relevant and culturally specific programs followed after. So again, DVAC is the only agency of its kind with unduplicated programs key to the community's response to domestic violence. And we fulfilled that need with our legal and advocacy expertise spanning 30 years now. This is our mission statement. We are committed to addressing domestic violence and other forms of harm through leadership, unique services, legal representation, survivor and system advocacy, community education, and social change work. We believe all persons should be treated with equality, dignity, and fairness. With high quality and culturally sensitive programs delivered with integrity and compassion, we create safety and self-sufficiency for survivors and their children. So here, I wanted to share this because domestic violence, child abuse are things that are prevalent in poverty too, are prevalent in almost in every community, right? And so I wanted to share this information that we collected from March to April of this year. One of the things that we see a lot, or we hear a lot from the victims or survivors that we serve, is about the isolation, right? And the pandemic uh, isolated at home even more, and it gives power to abusers. So it's caused an increase, and worse, and made situations of violence and harm much worse for people. So I wanted to share some of the statistics that we collected. Just in about a month, we had over 2,300 contacts with clients. We created 935 safety plans, 190 helpline calls, provided 543 legal information. I mean, our website hits increased 77%. Our calls to our helpline increased 68%. And again, this is just kind of an illustration to show the prevalence of the domestic violence, child abuse, poverty in our community. So here, DVAC clients represent or reflect Hawaii's multicultural population. Hawaii has become home to many different ethnic groups. And each and every one, right, they bring their own understanding of their culture, their values, and belief systems. And this includes their attitudes, belief systems, or responses to domestic violence. This varies from culture to culture. So, just because someone has experienced the same type of victimization, I guess, let's say, it doesn't mean that their interpretation of what happened is the same, right? So their perceptions of things like domestic violence or child abuse, or their understandings about it may be different because of their embedded cultural values and belief systems. And so at DVAC, we definitely take this into account. We're mindful about this. And so we intentionally hire bilingual, bicultural advocates and attorneys to help us gain a deep understanding of culture and how to respond to issues such as domestic violence and child abuse. In our agency alone, there are 11 different languages spoken. Some of them are Chinese, Ilocano, Tagalog, Visayan, Italian, German, Marshallese, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, and English. And so we understand that culture, we need to really have a deep understanding of culture and the different populations of people that we work with to provide more relevant, social services or support. And it's really the key to high success. And again, like I just want to make sure that I know that, we understand, like in any culture, right, there are variations and nuances to certain things. I wanted to share some quick facts about where we come from. Back in 2018, the population of Hawaii was estimated at 1.43 million people. And as you see there, almost 18% um, of our population here in Hawaii were foreign born compared to, the almost 13% nationally. And again, each bringing their own culture, their language, their traditions and values and belief systems with them. I want to break it down a little bit more. When we look at the Asian population here in Hawaii, I mean, that's, counting Japanese population, which makes up about 16.7%, the Filipino population, 14.1%, Chinese, 4.7%, Korean, 1.9%, Vietnamese, 0.6%, and other Asian communities make up 3.5% of our community. And that's, 37.7% of Asians compared here in Hawaii compared to 5.3% nationally. And again, here, it's just breaking it down a little bit more. I wanted to, our agency alone, we see a lot of immigrant clients from the Philippines, Japan, Korea, Russia, Cambodia, Thailand, and the Eastern Europe bloc, right? Our total client immigrant population in our agency is about 30 to, or these are clients born outside of the USA, right? And that makes up about 30 to 33% of the clients who are limited English proficient. So when we think about, people who come to a land, right, that is foreign to them, surrounded by people and systems that are foreign to them, and then you add or you couple that with trauma, with traumatic events like domestic violence, child abuse, poverty, it can create these overwhelming barriers and challenges, which is why, it's important for us to be able to provide, language interpretation materials that are provided in their language to break down some of these barriers, when they come for help. So I never like to assume that that people know what domestic violence is. So I included the definition that we have, on our website. But each state, I just want to note that each state, they vary in their definition of domestic violence. But what you will find in each is the pattern of different tactics, such as physical violence, verbal abuse, psychological tactics like intimidation, and they're used to gain and maintain power and control over their victim. So I wanted to talk about how DVAC approaches providing trauma-informed care and services to people. We are very mindful that each survivor's journey is different. And we're here, we're here to meet them where they're at. So what I mean by that is when we come into contact with victims or survivors of traumatic events or traumatic situations like domestic violence, not everyone that comes to us may be in a place where they're ready to leave. Many of them are still with their abusive partner. Some have left, some are, my point is that everyone is in a different spot, right? And so first and foremost, we're very mindful that everyone's readiness, their responses is all different. And so you'll hear us say that a lot, is that whenever we're working with people who have experienced trauma, we need to meet them where they're at. And culture is important, right, to that, and may influence the way someone is seeking help or participating in services. So we're mindful that not just their responses, people's responses to domestic violence or child abuse are different, but their healing journeys are different. The things that they need, the things that they're asking of us, or the way that they receive our care and our support and our services is very different for everyone's healing journey. So these are some of the things that we take into account, are the challenges and barriers that some might face. I mean, again, their belief systems. Some cultures may have, or some people, they may have obligations to their family, or their value of family versus, their self, or their loyalty to their culture. They may feel, indebted to a culture or to their people, to their family, and that might hinder someone from maybe leaving an abusive relationship. And with domestic violence or child abuse, that brings, a lot of shame, guilt for people. Um, some people, like I said, we work with so many immigrant clients, right? And again, I mean, from all over the world, and many may have a limited understanding of the legal systems. They may have a mistrust for law enforcement. They may have a fear or mistrust of other, institutions. I remember working with a client from another country, and her child was removed by the child welfare system. And her mom came here to Hawaii and was like, why can't we get my granddaughter back? They didn't understand the systems, right? So, these are all the things, understanding barriers and challenges of the people that you may come into contact with is so important. And so here are some of the ways, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we try to um, break down barriers and and connect with people. One of the things we do is we try to create safe and supportive spaces, whether that means they're in our office or we are, out somewhere else. We want to make sure that we're creating safe and supportive spaces. And the first thing is making our services accessible to everyone. We have 24-hour text and chat line where anyone can call, text, chat, to find out information. Another thing is confidentiality. I mean, confidentiality at the very least equals safety. So, and again, remember that trauma, that the trauma that DV victims experience is humiliating, it's private, it's personal. So, making sure or ensuring that the space is confidential, that what they say or what they share is confidential, that can really make a difference in how someone responds, um, or if someone comes for help, right? Because we look at it um, as when someone comes to us as the first and only time that they may seek out or reach out for help, and we want to make sure that we're making we're using that time wisely to create respectful, trusting relationships, to create, again, safe and supportive spaces. And so um, another thing is validating validation for the people that we work with. For DV victims, right? Again, it's about, their power and control, was taken away from them through the pattern of the abusive tactics. And so often their sense of self, their self-confidence, their self-esteem, even their ability to parent effectively is taken away, right? They don't have they don't have the power and control over those things. And so, you know, a lot of times is what we hear from the people that we are providing services and support to, you know, they blame themselves. They think that they've done something that warranted that type of treatment to them. And so, you know, it's validating to someone, you know, validating someone's experiences. Sometimes some people just want to tell you that this is what I experienced. I don't need you to, I don't need you to, you know, to tell me all these supportive things, or I just need you to listen. And doing that can really help validate someone or their experiences. And so that's so important. Again, you know, just demonstrating an attitude and support for people's decisions creates respectful and trusting relationships. You know, our jobs really become about educating people about systems, resources, and leaving them with a choice to allow us to provide support. Because I really feel that when people who've experienced traumatic events, when they are comfortable, or you make them feel comfortable enough to share things that are deeply personal, embarrassing, hurtful, painful, I feel that it is such a privilege for us as the helper or the supporter to be entrusted with that information. And so that's very important to remember, you know, that I feel like I really do. I feel like it's a privilege to for the people that we work with to trust us enough to share these deeply painful and personal parts of their lives. And it's really truly how we are able to better support them, right? When we are totally understanding um, uh, the whole situation, we're better able to assess and figure out appropriate supports for the people who come to us. We also try to possess a deep understanding of the effects of trauma. Um, Again, there's, you know, recognizing that people have different responses. I say this till I'm blue in the face, but there is no cookie cutter approach to doing this work. So, you know, like I mentioned before, that just because maybe we work only with domestic violence victims, and their victimization may be the same. Their experiences, the way that they perceived, the way that they experienced, it's all different. Um, all different, and we must recognize that we cannot approach our work in a way that is cookie cutter, to say that, okay, all domestic violence victims, you can, you know, provide them with this and that, and that'll help. So, you know, that's not okay. So we have to recognize that people have different responses. And then acknowledging the role that trauma may play in someone's life. Um, Working with and not working on. This is so important because victims of domestic violence, like I said, you know, just previously, they do not have control over their own lives. So recognizing, you know, that they are the experts of their own lives, and that they are the ones who will drive our work, can make people feel, you know, more motivated, empowered, um, you know, as opposed to us saying, you have to do this, this is what's best for you and your children, right? We don't want people to feel like we're just working off them. They are the ones, again, who are the experts of their lives, and they should be the ones who are informing the way that we do our work. And again, that's not going to look the same for every single person that you work with. And then avoiding re-traumatization. so many times we see our victims, survivors, they have to tell their story to, to the police, to the court system, to community service providers, and on one hand, I get it. That's people, professionals who are trying to assist. They need to get some information, but what some may not be mindful of in the moment or mindful at all is that having a survivor or someone who's experienced a traumatic event have to tell and retell their story over and over again is re-traumatizing. It's triggering. At DVAC, we try to minimize that um, by working in what we call a triad. This is just an example of how we try to work towards minimizing that. Now, whether that is a team of one of our advocates, attorneys, and paralegals working, with the client, or one of our team members working with other community agencies trying to assist the same client, we do our best to do a comprehensive kind of assessment of the situation, and we communicate with each other as best as we can, so that a victim does not have to retell their story over and over again. When at all possible, especially for us victim advocates, we really try to get multidisciplinary teams together. So many of the people that are coming into contact with our agency, again, they not only have legal issues, they have financial issues. Maybe they have children's needs, such as, behavioral health or mental health or medical needs that are all kind of affected as well. And so we do our best to try to get everyone involved together, so that the client or the survivor is not having to tell and retell their story. Trauma is manifested in so many ways. But someone trauma informed would understand that that uh, that by just someone, not just, I should not say just, by someone having to tell and retell and tell again, that can be have, deep, uh, serious effects on someone who has experienced traumatic events. And I want to also note that, when I talk about culture, people from different cultures, they may view threats to their safety very differently, right? So, for example, we had I like to give examples when I'm doing presentations, just to kind of. But we worked with a client who, uh, in their culture, viewed financial stability, right, as safety. So even though they were going through a contested divorce, or and custody, there were threats to of violence against them. Their concern was, how will I provide for my children? That was the priority, right? And so for other people who are like, wait a minute, you have to tell us what happened. What kind of threats were made against you? But we need this information. We need to know what happened, for the court case for this and this and that. Someone not trauma informed wouldn't recognize or realize that can shut someone down, right? That can make someone not want to seek services or support, because their focus right now is on, how will I be able to provide for my family, and instead they're met with having to almost relive the traumatic events because of um, what other people need in order to help them at that moment. So it's very important for us to try to avoid, or look at ways that we can avoid re-traumatizing the people that we work with. Another way is that we try to do this is possessing knowledge of cultural responses. As I mentioned earlier, we intentionally hire bilingual, bicultural staff. And it doesn't only help us break down the barriers for the people who come to us needing help, but it also helps us as an agency, as the people who set out to assist people who experience trauma. It helps us to respond in ways that will be appropriate, supportive, and effective, right? And so again, our staff mirrors the ethnicities and cultures of our diverse community. Um, be an ally, seek out education, practice cultural humility, and use your ability to help. We don't know everything, and we cannot assume, again, that just because someone is experiencing domestic violence, or whatever the trauma is, that we can help in a certain way. So, if you don't know, ask. Uh, I think that education and awareness is the first step, really, in helping create a more peaceful, safe, and kind world, for everyone. When we stop to say, okay, wait, I want to help. I don't know this. Let me learn. Um, so again, be an ally, seek out education, practice culture humility, and use your ability to help. Incorporate culture into interventions, and I'm going to give you more examples of how we do this a little later on in the presentation. Um, and then understanding how historical or intergenerational and our cultural trauma can affect the way someone experiences or responds to the trauma today. And I'm going to speak very broadly and generally about this. But we work with many people from different cultures who've experienced things like, oppression, violence, and through all of that, right, their identities, their cultural patterns, like language, the values, ethics, their belief systems may have been challenged, or changed. And again, there's no cookie cutter approach, right? And so for some of these people, Western or modern approaches to certain types of work may not work for everyone or every culture. I mean, we want victims and survivors to come to us to be able to speak or write in their own language, to read in their own language. We want them to be able to express their trauma and receive support in the way that they feel comfortable expressing or receiving it. So that's very, very important to look at in our native Hawaiian cultures. I speak or work with many women who would tell me things like, they didn't even realize, they didn't even have a name to put to the trauma that they're experiencing, right? And they learned that, their generations before them, maybe women were taught to be, or to play a certain role in the family. Maybe the way that, or they witnessed, they witnessed violence in the home, but they didn't call it domestic violence, right? They only looked at something, violence, seriously when someone, or a woman, required medical attention. I mean, the physical violence had to get so bad where they required medical attention, and that is the only time that they would seek out help. And so one client comes to mind. I had a client who was in a relationship, a Native Hawaiian woman, for 20 years, right? And she experienced so much physical abuse. I mean, crushing abuse, and for 20 years. And then she finally came to DVAC for help. And I had asked her, why, what changed? What changed this time that made you want to seek out help? because, you know, other agencies or other people that she went, you know, to seek help from, they thought, come on, you called in the 20 years, you called police more times than I can count. You always go back. You always do this. But I asked her, what was different this time? And she said, he closed his fist. Now, something like that, right? People may miss something like that or minimize something like that as something small, but to her, or you know, and just recognizing that, wow, that was something different. This is something that she was taught in her family, in her culture, in her community, that men do not hit women with a closed fist, but it was okay for them to throw things at them, to slap them, to kick them, to even strangle them. This is what she was taught. But when he closed his fist and hit her, that changed. That was a different experience for her. And so again, being mindful of things like that and understanding how culture, how upbringing can make a difference in the way that people respond, um, or you know, to things like domestic violence is very, very important in our work. We try to collaborate all the time. This doesn't mean um, collaborating just with other service providers or other systems. It really means collaborating with the people that we work with, because like I said, they are the experts of their lives, right? And so we take every opportunity to provide education and information about their rights, about systems, about resources, in the hopes that, you know, we are better giving them tools, and better preparing them for their journey, for their, you know, to healing, to safety, to peace. We always give the people that you're working with the choice to receive services. We should never, ever, ever say, yeah, that's best for you, you should do this. And especially with domestic violence victims, again, their power and control was taken away, and they didn't have a choice, or they maybe didn't even feel like they had the right to their own feelings, their own thoughts, and so remembering to assure them that they have the choice to receive, you know, services. And I mean, that's so important. And we provide many opportunities for them to give feedback about their experience with the way that we are delivering our services. And this is especially true for the different cultural groups that we work with, because again, there's no cookie cutter approach. Not everything or every way will work for every culture. And so, you know, this is where we heavily rely on our staff from different parts of the world, or you know, who are from different cultures, and to let us know about you know, the best ways to approach providing support and services. And then especially from the people themselves who we work with, is them having every opportunity to help us better help them. To say that, you know, we have many people who will tell us, in my culture, you know, we don't, this is not how we look at it, or this is not how we respond. And we take that information and we figure out how to incorporate that into our strategy for service delivery, so that the next time that we're working with them or with someone in their culture, we're better prepared. You know, we're more knowledgeable, better, and again, better prepared to help. Now, support groups. This is one of the services that we have at the Domestic Violence Action Center, and we have support groups, you know, for DV survivors, their children. We've created different cultural groups for survivors. And really what it is us providing a safe and comfortable space for families to come and to learn, to heal, and to grow. And so I'll talk a little bit more about our support groups and what we do. One of the approaches that we use is storytelling. Storytelling, I mean, is central to the cultural and oral traditions of many different communities, right? And again, for DV victims, I mean, shame, guilt, fear, they prevent people from telling their stories. Our stories teaches us and our children about history. It passes down traditions, educates and informs, and it empowers, and it heals. And we use storytelling um, uh, in a way for survivors to share their stories, for them to learn from other people's stories, because domestic violence, child abuse, they're hidden crimes, right? These are things that they're not comfortable to share, and so when people are able to come together and to share their stories, and then someone realizes that, wow, I'm not alone, right? That can be that can really start someone on their healing journey, and motivate them, or switch their focus to what they're going to do to move on, right, past the trauma. And so we use stories. We use stories in a way that teaches lessons about culture, um, about domestic violence, about parenting. So storytelling is such a powerful tool. Stories help people connect. And again, like I said, the people that come to our support groups, the children that come to our support groups, they're learning from each other. They're teaching each other. We're able to use stories to kind of and incorporate culture, and mesh it with domestic violence and parenting education, to um, uh, educate and inform people, but to help people connect. And when they do that, when they start feeling safe and comfortable, they really build their own community. And again, with victims of DV, they're isolated, and when they start to build to see that they're not alone, that there are people who are there to help, they learn how to access supports and help, and they start to build a community, right, with a different community within themselves, and it's so powerful in to someone, or so um, important to someone's healing journey, when they are feeling like they're not alone and they have a community of support behind them. So let me see. Oops. Okay. Another way that we do this is by breaking down language barriers. I think I mentioned before that, when at all possible, we try to um, make sure that people are able to tell their stories, to share their trauma in their own language, to learn and be informed in their own language. Um, And so this is just an example of how we do that. This is from one of our support groups where they're talking about core beliefs and cognitive distortions. Um, and so everything is done in their language. The group is facilitated by someone from that culture who speaks their native tongue, and then we're able to share the information in a way that's comfortable to the people that come to us for help. Um, Again, incorporating culture to traditions and practices, food is such a huge, important tool, I guess, that we use. Um, we start every group with surrounded by food. We gather, we have a light snack or meal. And for people who come to our services, or our groups, so scary I have to say that I think every single one, every single person that I've talked to, one of the first things they say is, you know, I didn't want to come because I didn't know what to expect. In their minds, they thought a support group or meeting with an advocate or an attorney, right? That would be just, okay, I'm going to sit on this in this cold room, you know, where it's not warm and there's nothing. But they said, you know, you let us sit down and eat some food, you know, it gets their nerves out, and they're able to be present in the moment and receive the information that we're trying to share. And so we use food to as one of our tools, and the different groups have, you know, will provide food that is familiar to people, because when you think about you know, going into somewhere where you don't know anyone, you don't know what to expect, but you notice that, wow, they have those, you know, they have those cookies, or they have this, you know, this type of snack or food that brings me back to maybe my childhood, or you know, how do they know about that food? And so that is a tool that many people still don't understand how we use that to help people connect, but you know, as part of people's cultures and or you know, traditions and practices, and so we use that as a tool, or even music. A lot of our groups, you know, we use uh, creative and expressive arts, which include music from different cultures, and that may not mean us singing a song but you know, it's having music that is familiar to you, calming to you from you know, from where you come from. Sometimes that really helps with, again, making people feel comfortable and wanting to engage and participate. So you know, really trying to think about the little things that are really big things that make people who are already uh, you know, they're already they're maybe they're anxious, they're fearful, but these things, again, these little things can really be big things when you that you can do to help someone who's experienced trauma feel more comfortable in seeking support. I wanted to share this video with you um, as kind of an example of how we use culture. In the, you know, the Hawaiians, for example, we didn't have written language until, like, I don't know, the 1800s. And in like many other cultures, you know, we developed different forms of communication. All information, right, before, for Hawaiians, it was passed down orally through the use of dance, poems, and chants. And so this video is an example of what we call an oli, which helps the native Hawaiians facilitate clearing out and cleansing of a space, and to call forth wisdom and knowledge from our ancestors. And so here's just a short clip of our native Hawaiian group doing an oli. Oops. Uh-oh. What happened there?
We lost you.
Okay, hold on. Need to apologize for the technical difficulties. Let's see. Go back. Is it this one? Are you seeing that, Shirley?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
your files.
Okay. Now I want to be able to play the slideshow. Oops, that's not it. I cannot remember how I did that. Nope, that's not slideshow. I can't see the options at the top that allow me to start the slideshow from the beginning. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. I know that there's a button here at the bottom that I can use for that. Oh, here we go. Okay.
We can still see, I think you may be sharing the wrong screen. You want to,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh no, okay. This is the one I was going to next.
There, yep.
Okay, so this, I mean, I wanted to point out, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but the group there that was doing the Oli, they were at the beach. For Hawaiians, they are very connected to the Aina or to the land. And so, you know, we're mindful of stuff like that. And so we don't, we take our services out to, when possible, we take it out to where people feel comfortable. So this video is what we call a mahalo circle, and where they're expressing gratitude or giving thanks for the space, for the support, for the open hearts and minds, and for the lessons that they learned. These next pictures, I just want to illustrate how, again, we use different tools to connect with people, right? Here are two people from the Filipino culture, and what you're seeing there, I don't know if you noticed right in between them, it is a game um, that they played, as you know, in their childhoods and in their lives now, or what they're teaching their children. And so we provide, we look to the facilitators, the staff, to provide us with that knowledge about things that again make people feel more comfortable, feel safe, that make people connect. And by just doing something like that, having them connect with something from their home, that really helps. That really helps to facilitate, you know, services beyond, because then they think, you know, they're more comfortable and willing to uh, share their trauma. And again, for us, that enables us to uh, figure out appropriate supports and how to better help with what they need. I can't echo this enough. There is no one size fits all approach to working with people who have experienced trauma. And you know, we don't need, I say this in so many of my presentations, that we don't need complex tools to do this work, right? And as you've seen in my presentation so far, you know, we use food, we use music, we use our hearts, we use our voices, and we use our ears to listen. We don't need complex tools to do this work, and it's very, very important that we remember that there is no one size fits all approach. Um, Here is just, you know, kind of a list of some of the culturally adaptive work that DVAC has taken part in. So I just wanted to kind of um, include that here, because we're very proud of you know, the work that we've been able to do to connect with different cultural communities. And then these pictures just illustrate, again, the diversity of the people that we serve. So here are people from our Filipino groups. These are the women and children who are all from Japan. They're Japanese nationals. And so uh, those are their beautiful faces. And it's so amazing to me, because when they first come to us, um, you don't see those happy faces. You don't see the smiles. So it's validating for us when we get to look at these and you see on the smiles on their faces, because then you know that we've hopefully made some difference in helping them on, you know, moving beyond their trauma. Here is a group of immigrants from all over the world. And when I'm looking at this picture, I can see people from Japan, from Mexico, from Germany, from Korea. So this was our immigrant group. And this is our Native Hawaiian group. Native Hawaiians actually make up the largest ethnic group receiving services from our agency. I just wanted to throw that in there. Now, this is just some of the things that we've learned along the way, right? Or best practices and lessons learned. And so I guess it's also a reiteration of some of the things that I've been talking about. But one of the things that we learned is that survivors, you know, if they made specific connections to the program from the very start, you know, that was very, very important, again, and then actively participating in the services. So this just speaks to, again, us understanding different cultures, different understanding that people respond differently, having people who look like you and talk like you, you know, and understand, you know, responses to certain things was really very important, um, you know, in the success of the program and the services. We also learn, again, we're incorporating culture into service delivery. Um, and then first meeting impressions, motivating interest. Again, someone, if someone experienced violence and abuse, they're just trauma, and they're, you know, they're going to seek or trying to seek out help, you know, if someone looked like them, spoke their language, broke down those barriers, right, made them feel a little bit comfortable, that motivated interest in seeking help. So, and the knowledge and understanding of culture demonstrated by staff. And then easy access to services, making our services, again, confidential, providing transportation. I mean, this is before the pandemic, you know, providing transportation to our group locations, or even providing transportation to our confidential office, and making childcare available, making services for their children available. These are all the things that were very important. in keeping people, coming to receive the help. I also wanted to. I'm very, very proud of a curriculum that or a model that we created when doing these support groups. Uh, the support groups are not just for the adult survivors; they're for their children and even for their families. Because violence and trauma, I mean, it affects, it can affect other people. And so we created a modular curriculum that that we could work with children too. So what we did was we mirrored the curriculum. And what I mean by that is, for example, if a parent group is talking about the dynamics of abuse, the teen or the youth group might be talking about anti-bullying, what it means to be a good friend. And the hope is that we would be able to, foster or promote communication between parent and child, foster and promote healthy parent-child bonding and relationships. And this is all done through storytelling, through expressive and creative arts. And so, and we're very, very proud of that. And I always like to share that, that was one of the things that we learned through our evidence-based evaluations, that, having uh, the ease of access to service, and then providing that kind of services to the youth, and then intentionally being intentional in how we provide those services to the youth, really made a difference in people's lives. So I wanted to share that. This video, I'm actually going to toggle between, because we found a problem. This video that I'm about to share with you is such a great illustration of, I think, trauma-informed work. So let me go ahead and play that.
The washing machine story, or survivor-centered advocacy at work. Once upon a time, there was an advocate who was working with a survivor. The survivor came to the advocate, and the advocate said, "What do you need help with right now?" The survivor thought about it for a second and said, "I really need a washing machine." The advocate, in her advocacy ways, validated that washing machines are important and useful, and having your own is very convenient. Then she paused and asked the same question again, hoping that maybe the survivor would answer with something else that the advocate typically offers. "So, what do you need help with right now?" The survivor answered, "It would really help me out if I had a washing machine." Then the advocate thought, "Well, maybe we can talk about this." She asked, "Is there a way you can get money to get a washing machine? Have you asked anyone you know or your family for help? Is there a convenient laundromat you could go to?" The advocate was doing her best problem solving. To which the survivor, frustrated, said, "Don't you think I've already thought of all that? You asked me what I needed, and I'm telling you I really need a washing machine of my own." The advocate was a little perplexed, and let's be honest, aggravated. But doing her best advocacy, she continued, "Well, I can't get you a washing machine, but we do have other services and supports here. We have support group, legal help, safety planning. Maybe there is something else I can help you with." So they talked for a while, but ultimately the advocate knew she wasn't connecting. So the advocate, in her advocacy ways, went for it. She decided to dig a little deeper on the washing machine issue. When the advocate started asking questions about the pressing need for a washing machine, she learned that the survivor couldn't use the laundromat because it was really far away. It didn't make sense for her to pick up her kids, get them dinner, and do laundry across town. It didn't leave enough time for the kids to go to bed at an hour that made them able to get up in the morning. The distance made it restrictive. When the advocate asked if she knew anyone close by who has a washing machine, the survivor replied, "The only people around here are my abuser's people. I can't ask them for help." As the advocate listened, it became apparent that having her own washing machine would mean that the survivor wouldn't have to keep her kids up late, put her family in more danger, and she would be able to have clean clothes and do what she needed to do in order to get to her job and keep it. Everything really hinged around her having a washing machine. Having a washing machine actually solved her problems around money, kids, and being safe. Upon hearing this, the advocate went to her supervisor. She relayed the survivor's story. Then she took a leap and pitched that getting this person a washing machine was a great use of funds. This would actually help her in a real way. The supervisor was impressed and convinced. They looked into it and they were able to do it. After they got her a washing machine, the survivor came back and said thank you. This is exactly what I needed. Now, I think you said something about support group.
Okay, so in the, I love this video again because it's such a great example of meeting, someone where they're at in the beginning of this presentation. I said that, that's something that we're always mindful of is meeting someone where they're at, right? It's so important for us to listen. I mean, really listen to what a person is, or what a person is asking for, and how we help with that. And so like in the video, you saw that where she ends up, right? The advocate ends up mentioning the other types of services that she had to offer because, I mean, she couldn't figure out, right, how to get her the washing machine at that moment. But for the survivor, I mean, that's what she needed in the moment. She needed a washing machine. By actively listening, right, we can avoid presenting people with options or services that are not really appropriate at the time. I mean, in this video, getting the washing machine, it meant the likelihood of a risk to her safety or her children's safety was minimized. She could take care of her children, take care of what she needed to, so that she could, better focus on other things such as deciding, maybe to get a court order, participating in support groups or other services for her and her children. So I say again, we do not need complex tools to provide trauma-informed services. We can listen, have an open heart, an open mind, be patient, and be kind. I mean, believe me, this really helps or can help change people's lives who may come to you for help after experiencing trauma. I wanted to share, I want to share survivors' voices. So these are some quotes from survivors that we have worked with. First says, my advocate was exceptional, helpful, compassionate. She provided me with many resources that were very helpful toward my journey to a new, safe, and happy life. She has impacted my life so much that she will always have a place in my heart, truly. The second says, although my attorney is very professional, he is compassionate and took time to listen and hear what I had to say. I did not want an attorney that intimidated me, and he never came across that way. He was very approachable, and it was a pleasure working with him. These are a few more quotes that I wanted to share that I love to share the voices of survivors. And so the first says, by attending this program, I realized that I am not the only one and that it is okay to speak out. Sharing and talking helped me a lot. Until I came to this program, I thought I was the only one on the island that has these issues. I talked to a counselor, but counselors can't talk about other people. So I thought I was the only one. This made me feel my husband was right. I was to blame. Culturally, I used to not tell my problems to friends, but here at PICO, this is one of the programs that we have, I learned people do discuss problems with friends, and I started to do so and got some feedback. I no longer keep this to myself, which is hard for Japanese. And the last says, a big factor is someone to talk to in Hawaii. I am Christian and I go to church and talk to the people there, but you don't understand unless you have the same experience. So I'm happy that here at PICO, I can share my experience with people who have similar experience. And I don't want to end this presentation without talking about self-care for you. I mean, it is important for us to learn to be kind to people, I'm sorry, kind to ourselves too, right? I mean, whenever, I think that when we're in this line of work, or we're in, in a line of work that works with people who have experienced trauma, it's almost your default setting to care. And we tend to prioritize other people's well-being first, but you're so susceptible to things like passion fatigue, vicarious trauma. And so it's so important for you to take time to rest and care for yourselves if you're going to do this work, right? Because you matter too. So, think about the things that put you in that peaceful and calm place and prioritize that. So I thank you for bearing with all my technical issues, as I am not tech savvy. I know that we made some time for some questions, some questions, and our Vice President of Advocacy Services, Christina Arias, is going to join me here for this portion. So, so if you have any questions, please ask. I will try our best to answer them, but thank you so much for spending this time with us. If you did want to learn more information about our programs in our agency, I did provide the website where you can find all the information and our contact information. I love to hear from you. So if you have additional questions or you want to learn or talk more about something specific, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you. Shirley?
Thank you so much, Ella. For everybody else, feel free to write comments in the chat box if you have anything you want the presenters to address in their presentation. We have about 10 minutes left. We have a question in the chat box about outreach activities. Can you talk a little bit more about the outreach activities at DVAC?
Yeah, sure. So in the beginning, I mentioned that we created outreach, right? So one of the things that we do, I'll talk about different types of outreach. So one of the things that was created was our Expo, or ex parte outreach program. And what that is, we have advocates based at the family court and civil court, there to be able to meet people who may be coming to the filing window for protection orders. And this way, they're able to educate people on the services that we have, offer them information and resources right there on the spot. In terms of other outreach, we have different programs, that go out to schools, other community agencies, whoever is willing, to hear our work. We go out for the youth, the teens, young adults. We have a Teen Alert program who provides education and awareness about safe dating, healthy relationships. Otherwise, we take every opportunity to go out there to get into different communities, to let them know about who we are and the services that we have. For example, we have a advocate, a COFA advocate, which goes out to her community, gets on the radio station where her community members may listen to talk about domestic violence, and then to talk about how to access services, where to come. We have Japanese advocate, Korean advocate, Christina, please chime in if I'm missing something, to kind of go back into their communities to, again, spread education and awareness, and to be able to provide their community with information on where to turn to help if they need it. I hope that answers your question.
We also do have, hi, this is Christina. We also do have a program called our LGBTQ program, who goes out to different universities and some of our colleges, community colleges here on Oahu only, and provides education regarding our LGBTQ community and domestic violence. We reach out to, or we do have partnership with other bigger organizations like Parents and Children Together, and provide training to their staff regarding DV and LGBTQ. Like Ella said, we do have a Teen Alert program who goes to all islands here in Hawaii, providing education and healthy relationships curriculum to our high school and even college campuses as well. So we're out there, we're basically everywhere. Whoever wants to hear us, invite us. I mean, we try to, pre-pandemic, we try to be, participate in a lot of community activities, children's events, and mostly DV outreach and events as well.
Thank you, Christina. This is Shirley again. We have another question in the Q&A box. This person is asking, how have these beautifully present practices, present to the land, to one another, to food, evolved with COVID?
So, hi, this is Christina. Thank you for asking the question. It has been a challenge. As Ella has explained, we have different fundings for different community, culturally specific programs we do have. And pre-pandemic, we were having support groups face-to-face. Like what she has said, we have thought about making sure that we are breaking down the barriers by providing transportation and food and childcare, and adapting the modular curriculum we have with the help of the bilingual, bicultural facilitators and advocates that we have that work with that particular group, and ensuring that it meets the needs of that culturally specific group. That has changed because of the pandemic. We have to adapt our curriculum to address the pressing and the most current needs of our ethnic group. We do our groups currently via Zoom. It's not as effective as how if we're doing it in person, for the reasons that we're not really feeling each other, we're seeing each other via virtually, which is a problem for some of our participants. We have applied for COVID funding to secure computer or iPads so that they can participate if they want to. It can be challenging for those who are still living with their abusers. So we ensure that our advocates are establishing safety net and codes and whatnot if it's in the event that, you know, there is a situation that arises. So we're doing it via Zoom at the moment, and we have, I think we're thinking of doing it all the way until December, and we're hoping by sometime in January, if our state is no longer in lockdown, we're still in lockdown right now for another week, but if, again, we would bring it to our participants and ask them if they are, if they feel comfortable to have it in a smaller group setting, instead of maybe having a maximum of 10, if we could do it with 4 women and their children that's under 10. If they feel safe enough to be in the presence of one another, then we'll follow their lead.
Aren't we all doing everything on Zoom nowadays?
Yeah.
I think we may have time for one last question. There was a question that I saw. Let me scroll up. So this participant says, I'm wondering what your perspectives are on engaging male identifying people in addressing and preventing domestic violence.
Well, we do not disqualify anyone in our agency, obviously not. It's just that, as everybody knows, statistics show that there are more female victims in this experiencing domestic violence. When I'll give you maybe an example of one of the programs that we've had in the past that we are able to sustain until the present. This is the program we call Hawai Ohana, and if you want a little bit more information about that program, then it's still on our website. Our Hawai Ohana program is specific to our Native Hawaiians and their families. We ran that program for 4 years. It was funded by FIPSA. We said that we are not the expert and that we would like to invite the community, cultural experts, social workers, Native Hawaiian providers, Native Hawaiian survivors, and have a conversation and include them in the program development. What we were hearing from our from the Hui group that we put together, and we were meeting every other week for a year, is that they don't want their families to be entangled, or they want to keep their families together. What does that mean for my husband, who may be an abuser, for instance, is one of the voices in the Hui. What we want is for him to be part of the conversation. We want him to be part of the changes that we are to make in our journey to this healing. That we had very many conflicting and competing demands. We have very strong Native Hawaiians on the table as well. I mean, if you put a group of 10 women and 2 men, and who has different opinions, then it can be very challenging to facilitate and come up with a plan. At the end, like what I said, relationship building is very important. What we did was to honor what they wanted. We created a curriculum, and what they wanted is a support group for the family. So how we did it is that we said that we will run a program for 9 months, meeting every week with a curriculum that they have created, and we hired a cultural content expert and a curriculum developer to do this, and have it in phases. The group wanted the first 3 months to be dedicated to the women or to the men, if there would be, who has experienced domestic violence. The second phase, which is the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th month, would be involving the children as part of that group, whom the participants from the first 3 months may have experienced a disparity, or may have experienced what is the word I'm looking for? Relationships that's damaged as a result of DV. For instance, the children are blaming the mom for the separation of the mom and the dad, or and things of that nature. So we have included the children in that process that could potentially build their relationship with their kids, or even strengthen the relationships with their children. And the third phase was designed to meet the ohana meaning to say the extended family. And that would be the choice of the participants in the first phase, mostly women, actually all women, to invite any member in her family or her extended family or her support system to join the third phase, so that there could be a better understanding and communication of, as far as what's happened to her, why she behaved the way she did, or what has happened to her that prevented her from leaving or made her leave the relationship. Surprisingly, so at the end, we did not say no if they wanted to bring their partners. The only criteria we had, or the only arrangement, and we were committed, of course, in making, is assuring that the other members know and are willing to welcome other members of the family who may have been the person who did the harm, and that safety is not compromised. Surprisingly, we have run over 21 groups during the 4-year period, and only one person at the end ended up inviting her husband to the group. The others opted not to. The others, I would assume that as a result of what they have learned in the process of building that relationships with the self, with the children, and with their ohana, decided to leave the relationship, are a little bit more secured and feeling confident that they can manage it with the support of their sisters and the group and the community and DVAC. Yeah. So we did not say no, we honored what they wanted, but at the end it resulted to only one person bringing the person who committed the harm to the program.
Thank you, Christina. This is Shirley again. We are out of time. I just want to say thank you both so much, Ella and Christina, for presenting in this webinar today, and for staying a little bit over time to answer all the questions. I have been able to hear several presentations from Ella and Christina and others at Domestic Violence Action Center, and it's always such a learning experience. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the attendees being here today. I will be sending out the recording, the slides, and resources, email contacts, and feel free to get in touch and have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.